response to the challenge brought by COVID-19 pandemic that has also affected the sector of education, leading to envision the so-called new normal. In education, new normal requires to unlearn what we have always known. The rows of tasks, heavy bugs, tangible outputs, physical interactions, public exams, mass lectures, and even parent-teacher relationship.
The COVID-19 has resulted in schools shut all across the world. As a result, education has changed dramatically, with the distinctive rise of e-learning, whereby teaching is undertaken remotely and on digital platforms. The present COVID-19 pandemic has brought extraordinary challenges and has affected the educational sectors, and no one knows when it will end. Every country is presently implementing plans and procedures on how to contain the virus, and the infections are still continually rising. In the educational context, to sustain and provide quality education despite lockdown and community quarantine, the new normal should be taken into consideration in the planning and implementation of the new normal educational policy. For responding issues, problems, and trends that are currently arising and will arise in the future due to COVID-19, through the lens of education in the Philippines, the new educational norm. Enrollment this year is 3 million lower than last year's 27.7 million students. Majority of the unenrolled students are from private schools, while over 400,000 of them have transferred to public schools.
The COVID-19 pandemic has created the largest disruption of education system in human history, affecting nearly 1.6 billion learners in more than 200 countries. Closure of schools, institutions, and other learning spaces have impacted more than 94% of the world's students' population. This has brought far-reaching changes in all aspects of our lives. Social distancing and restrictive movement policies have significantly disturbed traditional educational practices. Reopening of schools after relaxations of restriction is another challenge, with many new standard operating procedures put in place.
With this premise, distance learning is directly correlated as enabler of this new normal delivery mode of education, depending much on online learning and digital means to adapt as education practices transit to the new normal.
Within a short span of COVID-19 pandemic, many researchers have shared their works on teaching and learning in different ways. Several schools, colleges, and universities has discontinued face-to-face teachings. There is a fear of losing 2020 academic year or even more in the coming future. The need of the hour is to innovate and implement alternative educational system and assessment strategies. The COVID-19 pandemic has provided us with an opportunity to pave the way of introducing digital learning.
Learning will shift from public space to personal space as students study at the comfort and safety of their homes at their own pace. This changed the social interaction from physical to virtual. The new normal also means shift in the teaching delivery mode from one-size-fits-all to individualized and differentiated learning, where students can progress through the curriculum of different speeds and use different resources based on their own particular learning needs. This facet looks into the challenge of reducing and redesigning learning programs and materials that cater the individual needs of students and their access to internet connectivity and digital resources.
The online learning, distance, and continuing education have become a panacea for this unprecedented global pandemic. Despite the challenges posed to both educators and the learners, transitioning from traditional face-to-face learning to online learning can be an entirely different experience for the learners and the educators, which they must adapt to with a little or no other alternatives available. The education system and the educators have adapted education in emergency. Through various online platforms are compelled to adapt systems that they are not prepared for.
Another facet to consider is the shift of responsibility in learning facilitation that requires the active participation of household members, providing guidance and assistance throughout the home-based learning scheme. The new normal needs also to be defined in terms of new and alternative means of evaluating learning to monitor student individual achievement.
The educators and learners use on online platforms such as Google Classroom, Zoom, virtual learning environment, and social media and various group forums like Telegram, Messenger, WhatsApp, and WeChat are explored and tried for teaching and learning for the first time ever to continue education. This can be explored further even after face-to-face teaching lessons, and these platforms can provide additional resources and coaching to the learners.
Learning online has long been proven to be beneficial to students and community facing certain circumstances like what COVID-19 pandemic caused.
Furthermore, United Nations 2020 stated that depending on the duration of the lockdown, postponement or cancellation of the entire examination assessment might be a grim possibility. The education system in schools, colleges, and universities across the country has been severely impacted due to the ongoing situation.
It is clear that this pandemic has utterly disrupted an education system that many assert was already losing its relevance. Could the move to online learning will be the catalyst to create a new, more effective way of educating students? Unless access costs decrease and quality of access increase in all countries, the gap in education quality and thus socioeconomic equality will be further exacerbated. The digital divide could become more extreme if educational access is dictated by access to the latest technologies. The pandemic is also an opportunity to remind ourselves of the skills students need in this unpredictable world, such as informed decision-making, creative problem-solving, and perhaps above all, adaptability.
No matter what the situation is, learning has to be consistently achieved by every student, for living means learning.